Good morning to you all. A very busy morning today. Charlie, let me begin with you because you've been talking and thinking about this a lot, not just over the last couple of weeks, but over the last 4 or 5 years, what Donald Trump has done to the Republican Party, what he means for the future of the Republican Party. You called the vote on Saturday a defining vote for the party. What did those senators tell you on Saturday?
Well, first of all, mad respect for the 7 that voted to convict. But you think about the votes that Republicans have taken, I think it's 17 to 240 to basically say that they're okay with what happened on January 6th. Look, it is Donald Trump's party, but worse. You think about the last 4 years and the Republican Party's acquiescence, enabling of Donald Trump, looking the other way for the racism, the xenophobia, the lies, the mockery of the disabled and women, all of that. But now they've decided they're going to look the other way to sedition, violence, anti-democratic authoritarianism. And I think that this party is, I think that the impeachment damaged both Donald Trump and the Republican Party, but also changed Donald Trump. It changed the Republican Party. The Republican Party now has a large constituency of extremists, including extremists who are violent. I know we've talked a lot about cowardly Republicans. Well, one of the reasons why they're cowardly is because fear is a major factor now in right-wing politics and Republican politics, and I don't think that's going to go away. I think that many of the right-wing extremists who invaded the Capitol are going to feel emboldened by the vote over the weekend, and I think that you're going to see the Republican Party continue to unfortunately appease those factions. So it is Donald Trump's party, which is not new, but I think it's in some ways worse.
John Meacham, there were 7 Republicans who voted to convict. A couple of surprises, but most of them either just won re-election or are retiring in the case of Pat Toomey and Richard Burr. Richard Burr already now today will face censure from the Republican Party in his home state of North Carolina. So, of course, there is blowback on these votes. Back home, from Donald Trump himself, from members of the MAGA movement who have said, you crossed this president, you betrayed this president, showing still, even with him out of office, there is and will be a price for stepping out of line with the former one-term, twice impeached president.
Yeah, if I were Senator Burr, I would embrace that. There's something, sometimes we talk about obituary management. Those 7 folks just helped their obituaries. I think about this a lot when you see we're at the point in the actuarial cycle where a lot of folks involved in Watergate are moving on. And it's just interesting to see what is it that you're remembered for. I'm sure Senator Burr is a lovely man, and I'm sure he's done a lot for North Carolina and America. But I promise you that the thing right now that looms largest is that he decided we're a constitutional republic, not a cult of personality. And in many ways, that's what that vote was about. The other interesting thing, and Willie, I always hesitate to offer any advice to you because you haven't done well enough in your life and career. But you had an interesting slip of the tongue at the top of the hour. You said, we wonder what this will mean for President Trump's ambitious agenda. And that's a sign of the ubiquity, the ongoing ubiquity of the former president of the United States. And I'm not arguing, therefore, we move on. One of the great mistakes we made in this country historically is that in the aftermath of the Civil War, during Reconstruction, we did not hold insurrectionists, rebels accountable for what they did. But on this President's Day, one of the things to think about is we do have a different president. And 81 million Americans made what I would argue is the right choice in November. And 57 United States senators, not enough, but 57 United States senators said that this man the former president was guilty of inciting insurrection against his own government. And that 57-43 number, while not determinative in a constitutional sense, is probably not that far off from where the country at large is about the Republican Party. And so this is Charlie's bailiwick, not mine. But if I were a Republican right now, and I was thinking not in 10-minute terms, which is what they're doing, but 10-year terms, I would feel an existential crisis.
Hey, thanks so much for watching our YouTube channel. You can follow up on today's top stories and breaking news, or catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.